Hey fiends. To quote a guy who did not do nearly enough Frankenstein material, it seems that now is the winter of our discontent. Okay, I know Shakespeare died like way before Mary Shelley was born, and also Caliban from The Tempest is kind of a Frankenstein, but I'm off topic. Over here at the Frankencast Labs, we've had a pretty rough winter with apocalyptic Midwest winter weather, and now the other big winter nuisance sickness. Since we're down for the count this week and weren't able to get together to discuss House of the Wolfman as we promised, we wanted to make sure that you all didn't go without. These cold, bitter winters are when you most need new podcast distractions, right? Since it's so cold, we decided to heat things up with an old favorite from the Patreon. And by the way, if you're not subscribed, this is what you're missing. For less than a cup of coffee, etc., you could be getting an extra episode from us every week at patreon.com/thefrankencast. But this episode was back when we were getting hyped up for the Rob Zombie Munsters movie, and we were just going wild talking about everything Munsters related we could find. And boy, did we find a gem with this one. So enjoy. This Ain't the Munsters XXX, the Munsters porn parody, which was our first foray, but not our last, into the quite widespread, if you'll pardon the pun, world of Frankenstein-related pornography. So enjoy. And take it away, spooky surf rock guitar guy? Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
You know that's a dick in that cardboard tube, right? That is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, that was like the least sneaky.
Right?
Like...
The moment I saw a cardboard tube and a guy in a bloody, doctor's coat or lab coat, I was like, yep, that's a dick. That's a penis. Yeah. There's no way that's not.
Yeah.
Hey, so if you didn't know,
as warned,
yeah,
this week we're talking about the Hustler parody. This Ain't the Munsters XXX.
Oh, hell of a movie.
It is. It's something else. It's wild.
I guess we've gone from Munster Month to Munster Months.
Yeah. Over here on the Patreon, we just can't let the Munsters go. We're gonna ride it out until that Rob Zombie movie comes out.
That's a very appropriate phrasing there, because we start this movie off with a lady scientist who I believe is only credited as a Magic Girl.
Okay.
Right. No, Magic Woman. I'm sorry. Sammy Rhodes. She's going to town on herself.
Yeah, so we're in it's a science lab, but it is like the most bootleg science lab you've ever seen. Like, it's clearly just an empty bedroom where they've put a table in the corner that's got a couple beakers that have food coloring liquids in them. And then there's two or three electrical things that are like the shit you can buy at Spencer's Gifts, like that thing that you touch your fingers to and the little pink beams of electricity come out to and all that. Yeah. It's just what can we get with $100 to make this look like a science lab?
Right, exactly. Well, the good news is whatever they spent, I guarantee you they made back. Or maybe they didn't. I don't know the interest in Munsters-based porn.
Yeah, so like you said, it's just this scene. It's a woman sitting in a chair in the middle of this room. She's just masturbating by herself, and she's like you said, she's in a lab coat. She's got long blonde hair and glasses, and I was like, is this Marilyn? Because it doesn't really look like Marilyn, but it is a attractive blonde woman in a Munsters movie, so I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so it goes on. This scene goes on for a while. It has really weird, shaky camera. I don't know. The rest of the movie's not as bad, but this scene, the cameraman is having some issues.
Well, he might be filming it one-handed. Who knows?
And it's not the best angles for what's going on. It's a weird scene. It's a strange way to start this movie for sure, because you're just what does this have to do with the Munsters?
I feel like they were oh, we're 10 minutes under under what we need. Let's film a lady masturbating for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
But it actually, like, it kind of works because, so, like, you know, as things kind of ratchet up and, like, she's like,
we got to mention the glass dildo coming out, okay?
Yeah.
That's a very important plot point.
Plot point, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, at first she's just using her hands, and then she gets into that, and then, like, you know, you can tell, like, she's getting close to climax and everything, and, like, there's really weird music that's playing. It's like a Casio keyboard drum loop. And then the room starts to kind of fill with smoke from, like, below the camera. And then all of a sudden there's, like, an explosion.
As she climaxes.
So, like, she has an orgasm, there's an explosion, and she just turns into Grandpa.
What a troll, by the way. Could you imagine? You're like, I'm almost there. I want to finish what she does. I'm almost there. And then, boom, Grandpa. No! Gosh.
Thankfully, Grandpa is clothed. It's
thank God.
Grandpa's like the only, other than this. I guess that's because it's technically Grandpa. Grandpa never like has sex in this movie.
Well, I mean, kinda.
Yeah,
but not the not the actor.
Exactly.
Right. Technically, Grandpa has the most sex in the movie if you count this and the other scene later.
True.
Yeah. But
yeah, he lights up a cigar and he's just like,
well,
who needs the internet?
Yeah, right. Exactly. At the age at the time, 2008, when it's like internet porn's, I'm not going to say started being a big thing, but like really ratcheted up from where it had been.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, this is like the height of like everybody realizing like, oh, wow, there's like an infinite supply of porn on the internet.
Right. This is kind of when Pornhub became like a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
But also, going back to the plot point, he bites down on the glass dildo before he puts the actual cigar in his mouth. So, Yep. See, I told you this.
So you know, it's a, like you said, it's kind of a troll thing, but it's kind of a good, you know, like the thing about this that like we were just talking about before we started recording is that like this feels like an actual episode of the Munsters. Like if you probably did the timing, it probably is. It's an hour and a half movie, and probably a half hour of it is a plot, like is a Munsters episode that then just has sex scenes interjected, you know, occasionally or whatever. And so this feels like the beginning of a Munsters episode. You know, Grandpa has a funny one-liner, and then we cut to the credits and
the intro,
the Munsters theme and everything. So like, yeah, it feels familiar, in more ways than one, I guess.
Yep. So let's go ahead and go through the main cast. We got Lee Stone as Herman, who busts through the door as a Herman should. Then we have Roxy Deville as Lily, who comes in after, you know, as Lily should. Then we got Gavin Wells, who is a grandpa, and he has a shovel, you know, because why not? that makes sense. Shauna Lee is Marilyn. Trent Soluri is Eddie, which, you know, I feel like if you could have cut out any character, that probably should have, probably should have been the one.
Yeah, thankfully they aged him up. He's like, you know, he's
like 20
something. Yeah, like, so obviously we're not having like young child stuff going on in here. Thank God.
Right. Still questionable, but yeah, more acceptable. And of course, the movie was directed by Anton Slayer. What a hell of a name. I feel like that's one you choose for yourself. Hope, you know.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right.
And like while this is going, like it's a pretty faithful sort of recreation of the Munsters credits. You know, like you said, Herman breaks through the door, and then everybody else walks through the hole he's made. Eddie has a baseball bat that he swings and everything.
Yeah.
And they're playing like a sort of non-copyright infringing attempt at recreating the Munsters theme. It's the same sort of like surf rock guitar stuff, but it's, you know, not the exact notes that we know.
Right, just enough not to get sued.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get back to, you know, go back to the Munsters living room after the theme's over, and we've got Lily and Marilyn. They're sitting in the living room together chatting. They mention that tomorrow is Herman and Lily's anniversary. And thankfully, the weather is going to be stormy, you know. So they're they're leaning into the Munsters jokes. Like
Yeah.
the people who made the people who wrote the plot of this clearly have like watched the Munsters. It's not just like, let's put people in monster makeup and have them have sex and not worry about the specifics. Like they actually did their homework.
Yeah. I feel like, they were like, man, like we have to do this porn, but I would love to do a Munsters episode. And that's what they did.
Yeah. Lily mentions that they've been together for 200 years.
Yeah, Lily and Herman's anniversary is coming up tomorrow.
And later on, there's a few moments where she mentions how long they've been together, and every time the number goes up. But this first time, it's 200 years.
Right, exactly.
But she does mention something, this line that pretty much informs the whole plot of the movie, which is that, they've been together 200 years, but in that time, most of Herman's original parts have been swapped out. But, he's still got the same head on his shoulders that she fell in love with all those years ago.
See, that's how you know they cared. That joke right there.
Right. And then Grandpa is reading a paper and he's talking about that there's bad neighborhoods on the west side.
Oh, well, the prices of houses are skyrocketing. Not living through that now, and 12 years or 20 years later. Damn it.
Right. And then but Herman comes in and he's like, Grandpa, some of my parts are from the west side. I don't want you talking that way about the west side. So
the left half of my body is mostly from the west side.
Yeah. So Grandpa being maybe a slight bit racist, and Herman shutting that down that's kind of nods back to the way things were in the 60s, and that we're moving forward a little bit. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that during that joke, I don't think Roxy Deville was too fond of that joke, because her face when it was made was like, fuck this shit.
And she's probably she's probably my favorite part of this film. I think her acting, she's really kind of leaning into it. She's, she's not exactly doing the Yvonne DiCarlo Lily, but she is acting. She's really kind of giving a performance, that actually works. And, it made me wish she was in more of the movie than she is.
Right, but I enjoy all the parts she's in.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yep. All right. Anyway.
We'll get to that before too long.
Yeah. Then we get some nice loving Herman and Lily kiss.
Yeah, and their relationship does feel like the Munsters that we're used to. It's very genuine, and the guy playing Herman is also he does a lot of Fred Gwynn's mannerisms.
Really does.
He does a pretty faithful recreation of what he was doing, and it feels nice to see that again.
Yeah, he has that childish demeanor, obviously with a little bit of sex fiend, but when he stomps around and has his laugh. I do enjoy his laugh. I'm like, all right, that's a good Herman laugh.
Yeah. And he does that. He talks with his hands in the same way that Fred Gwynn does and stuff. So it works really well.
Yeah. But then of course, Herman's like, hey, let me see the sports page. I want to see, how I heard one of my old basketball teammates died. And of course, Marilyn's like, oh, that's really sad. I do enjoy the joke of Herman being like, nah, it's fine. Now he plays for the zombies.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Eddie strolls in, and he's getting ready to go to band practice. Yeah. He's got a guitar. So this feels like the mini Munsters version of Eddie, where he's into rock and roll and everything.
Yeah, I feel
which obviously a little more edgy in this than the Archie kind of music that was going on in that movie.
Right. He's probably not playing Archie's. He's probably playing new metal.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get a really good joke where Grandpa is acting or he's asking Eddie if he can join the band.
Right. Because I can really wail away at my flugelhorn. That's a twofer.
Yeah. Which that is a solid innuendo sex joke. That's fantastic. And Eddie's TMI, Grandpa, and leaves.
Right. I'll double your entendre. Anyway.
But so then Herman's all right, well, I got to head out. I've got to pick up something for tomorrow. And, Lily's all oh, Herman. She knows. Everybody knows he's going to get their anniversary gift.
Right.
It's sweet.
Yep. And once you see it, as we mentioned earlier, you'll know.
Right.
But, of course, Marilyn has to stay there because she's waiting on her long-distance boyfriend, Ted, to come back. He's finally back in the States. and it's been such a long time since they've seen each other. They're going to have sex, is what the movie's telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Lily's like, well, that's fine, because I'm headed to the grocery. I'm going to try to get some rotten meat.
Mm-hmm.
And so she heads out, and then, Marilyn's boyfriend arrives. He's got a rose. And I was so confused for this whole scene, because it really felt like it was going to meet, like that it was going somewhere. Like, so he arrives, he's got a rose. He doesn't say anything.
Nothing.
And he's like, got a weird kind of twitchy demeanor to him. Like he's almost like animalistic or whatever. Like he almost like behaves like a puppy or something.
Right.
And I was like, what is going on with it? Like there's something weird about this guy. And surely that's going to pay off in some way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Spoiler alert. It don't. It's just the dude just quiet as a mouse for no reason until they get to go into town, which is pretty damn quick once he gets there, because Marilyn just sniffs the rose, chucks it, and they go to town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like he's touching her in weird ways. Like they're kind of kissing, and he's like, it feels like a person that's having sex for the first time, and like he's like, kind of, he's using his hands in like I can't really describe it, but like it's not natural. It's not the way that normal people touch each other.
Well, also like he just shoves his head into places. And he goes like the whole thing.
Yeah, and like eventually, when he goes down on her later, like he's kind of making like chomping motions and stuff. Like, it's very bizarre. Like my first thought was like, okay, maybe this is like, like the dog version of Herman from Here Come the Munsters. Like maybe this is a boyfriend that's been created in a lab and he has like a dog brain or something, because he's just not acting like a person at all. And she even says like, you're such an animal at one point. And I was like, yeah, we're definitely going somewhere weird with this. And then I mean, pretty much just like, they have sex for a while. He finishes, and she's like, all right, you got to get out of here. My Aunt Lily's going to be home soon, and I need to clean up. And he leaves, and that's it. The last
that's all
we see
Ted.
of him.
Yeah, we don't hear anything else about Ted for the rest of the movie, I don't think.
Also, so like we didn't really talk about, like, the living room set is again like they did a lot with a little. Like it's you got a lot of fake cobwebs, you got a lot of candles everywhere. But in the background, there's Lily's harp. So like they are paying attention to trying to make this look as much like the Munsters' house as they can on like a shoestring porn budget.
Right, and also as legally distinct as they can as well.
Right. Yeah. So by this point, we've had like basically one sort of real scene and like two sex scenes, and we're about a half hour into this hour and a half long movie. Mm-hmm. So like obviously, I mean, it's a porn film. Of course, the priority is the sex scenes. Yeah.
But we do get nice little vignettes like this next one, where we have Herman just clapping as a doctor. Apparently Dr. Seidelman, I guess he's the coroner. I believe that's what he's mentioned as. Comes in and like hands him a tube. We've already mentioned what's in the tube. If you see the tube, you know what's in the tube. It's a dick in a tube.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's like a poster tube, and like Herman like opens it and looks down inside, and he's like, oh yeah, he like claps and is all excited about what he sees in there, and yeah, obviously we know where this is going. Right. It's the anniversary gift.
Right, it is the anniversary
gift. It keeps on giving.
Yep. But I do like how the coroner is like covered in blood in his lab coat, and he literally, as he hands Herman the tube, he says, all right, now beat it. And it's like, oh, okay, that's another clue of what that is.
Right. Yeah, and so he basically heads out then, and then we get another guy who I think is just another doctor or a nurse. He's not in a lab coat, but he's wearing like scrubs.
Yeah, and then we also get, before that we get bad CGI Flappy Bats. I think this may be the first one we've gotten of those.
Yeah, but we see those like between each scene, like they kind of are like the transitions. But
this was Grandpa.
Like, terrible.
Yeah, this is Grandpa coming in.
Oh yeah, and then we do get him up here. Mm-hmm. So there's like the intercut ones, but then also in this scene we get them as well. Yeah. And so Grandpa and Herman are hanging out, and this other doctor or nurse guy comes in, and he's like, hey, will you all do me a favor? I gotta go. I've got something going on, but my girlfriend was supposed to meet me here. Can you tell her I had to run? But it's our anniversary today, so let her know that I'm not gonna miss our plans later. I'll see her later. I have something to do first.
Yep.
And so they're like, sure, yeah, no problem. We can definitely do that. That's fine.
They're those four shadows again that keep following me around. Anyway.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, he leaves. And then Grandpa's like, Herman, you go ahead and go. I know you got a lot to plan and take care of. I'll stick around and wait for the girlfriend to show up. I'll let her know. And Herman's like, all right, see you back at the house.
Yep. And immediately the girlfriend arrives as soon as Herman leaves.
And, of course, she's a beautiful porn star, wearing like a button-up shirt that has like maybe 2 buttons buttoned and everything. And right. Grandpa is like, oh yeah, let me go get him. Like he said he's right down the hall. I'll let him know you're here.
You know what? I could see Grandpa doing this exact thing. Like he even mentions, he's like, if I was a younger man or a normal man of my age, I would probably just die from a heart attack at seeing you.
Right.
Yeah.
So of course Grandpa like uses magic and turns into a copy of the guy who is left.
Right. By the way, another way that they really like the Munsters is that he actually takes a potion to transform. He doesn't just like scuttle off into the corner and just do it. It's like, no, it has to be a potion. Well, as consistent as possible, Grandpa usually has to take something to turn into something. Until he doesn't.
And so like she's like, oh, she's happy to see her boyfriend, of course. And like he's just ready to have sex, and she's like, "You're not gonna say anything," and he like shakes his head no, and she's like, "All right," It's kind of like because playing like a sexy game. But like at the moment, I was like, okay, so I guess he's not saying anything because he's gonna have Grandpa's voice, and he doesn't want her to know that, so like he's just gonna be quiet. But then later, like the guy just starts talking, and it's the the doctor's voice. So I don't know why he's not talking here at the beginning.
The writers forgot about that halfway through. Or I guess writers. What am I talking about? I'm sorry. Maybe the actors forgot about it.
Yeah, I'm sure they wrote the scene that he wasn't going to talk, and then like the 2 porn stars are having sex, and the guy's just like, into the the action and just starts acting like he normally would.
Yeah. Also, if this wasn't a porn, this would be incredibly creepy.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking like that's the sketchy thing about this scene is like. Well, one, like, at first I was like, oh, this Grandpa seems like he's, like, interested in making sure that she's getting pleasure out of this, too. That's really nice. Like, it doesn't feel like a lot of porn scenes that are very, like, specifically oriented towards the guy's pleasure. But then I was like, wait a minute. She's not consenting to this. Like, you can't consent to having sex with someone if you think you're having sex with someone else. Right. So, like, this is bad. Like... I mean, like, obviously shape-shifting doesn't exist in our world, right. But I know that there have been instances of, like, people wearing masks and stuff, and, like, they, that's not okay. Like,
yeah, don't do that.
So, yeah, like, this woman thinks she's having sex with her boyfriend, and she's having sex with a stranger, and, like, that is definitely not, obviously, like you said, it's porn. Porn is a different world, and so that's fine, but, like, it is worth acknowledging that like this is not consensual in the strictest interpretation of what consent means. So yeah, not great. And I also like when like Grandpa wouldn't talk at the beginning, there was a moment where I was like, oh shit, like was Ted Grandpa?
Oh no. Like, don't say that.
Please, yeah, I was like, please God, let that not be the case. And I'm fairly certain that it's not. But there was a moment where I was like, "Oh my God!" Like if that was great, like if the not talking thing was, dear God, let that not be the case. And
Anthony,
I don't think it is.
I don't know, man. Now that you mention it, holy shit, they act a lot alike. Oh, maybe someone was like, "No, we got to cut this. We cannot have this through line be in this movie."
Well, the Dr. Grandpa character seems a lot more adept at like touching a woman than the Ted character did. So
That's true.
Hoping that they were different people. But yeah.
Well, if they're not, we don't want to know. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I put this into all of your brains.
Right. Oh well. But now we go home after they finish.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. There's not much to this scene in terms of like what's going on. Like it's it just they finish and then we're back to the Munster house. And like when we see the Munster house, we get that establishing shot of the exterior like we're used to seeing in the show.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's like the worst CGI. Like it looks like somebody made it on paintbrush or something.
Right. Did you ever watch that old what's it called? Like the Crypt Keepers. It was like a kid's. It was almost like Double Dare, but it had the Crypt Keeper in it, and they all played bad CGI video games.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like
I forget
that.
what it's called, but
Yeah, it's just that kind of bad CGI. I don't know if that's a better reference or a worse one. I don't know. Is it more obscure or less?
But so yeah, then we go back to the living room, and it's Lily and Marilyn, and they're talking about Marilyn's date, which was literally just having sex and then kicking him out.
Right.
It was not exactly a date, but
good for her.
Marilyn seemed happy with it, so that's good for her.
Right. And then of course Herman arrives home and he's like, "Hey, where's Grandpa? Like, is he around?" And of course they're like, "He should be sleeping in his lab, right?"
And he's like, "Yeah, of course. I didn't just see Grandpa
right.
He's it's Herman being like the typical Herman where he's like trying to be sneaky and failing so hard at it.
Right. Well, this is a little bit of a sneakier Herman than our other Hermans, but yeah, he's kind of like the Herman that follows the bro code. He's like, yes, he is definitely asleep in the basement and not having sex with somebody else's girlfriend.
Yeah. Ugh. And so yeah, then he heads down, and obviously Lily and Marilyn are like, "I wonder what's in the tube. I'm sure that's the anniversary gift." Like he's not sneaky, but they're letting him like feel like he's sneaky.
It's a dick in a tube.
And yeah, Lily's guess is it's probably like
flowers.
Dead flowers that are all decaying and covered with worms
and diseased. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, he knows how much I love those. So that's. Yeah, good Munsters bit there. Mm-hmm. And then, Herman does go downstairs and Grandpa is there in the lab.
Just hanging around.
Right. And he's like, "All right, Grandpa, I need your help. Mm-hmm. I know you've had a really busy day, but..." So then, presumably they're going to get to work, but while they're working, we cut to a news show.
Transylvania Media Network. Yeah. Which clearly a parody of Fox.
The news program is anchored by more bad CGI. It's like a talking skeleton
with
behind a news anchor desk.
It's like a bad version of Ghost Rider. Like they're like flames in his mouth and in his eyes, but like not like bright flames, just like smoldering flames a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so the breaking news is that apparently famous rock star Eddie Munster has just had a sex tape that has leaked.
Yeah. Right. Famous rock star Eddie Munster.
And then, occasionally you'll get those moments when you're watching the news where they're like, if you've got any children watching, we want to let you know they may want to leave the room. The next, this footage may be a little graphic in nature. And usually it's like some violence that,
right.
is, unpleasant to see, but is not like extremely graphic.
No, this one's going to let you know we're doing full-fledged fucking. Because we're gonna have
like a little word of warning, like, "Hey, this is controversial footage or whatever," and then it's straight up just they played the entire sex tape. On the news.
Yeah, the warning though is there will be full penetration of one or more girls. So it's like we got a double here at least, and a werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what happens.
Yep. Yeah. So then we cut to, and it's like. So this scene, like, this is also, talking about being like the heyday of porn. This is also the heyday of like celebrity sex tapes.
Yeah.
So like, this would have been like the Pam and Tommy and the Paris Hilton one and the Kim Kardashian one and stuff. So like, this footage is like lightly tinted green to imply like night vision, because a lot of those sex tapes were like shot with night vision cameras. Mm-hmm. But like, clearly this isn't actual night vision. You don't get like the weird eye effects and stuff. It's just like they've just tinted the screen green.
Yeah. I don't know what it says about me, but this was my second favorite scene of the movie. So do with that what you will. Erase this. I don't know, but yeah.
I think I'd probably agree with that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And so it turns, so it's Eddie. He's there with like a woman who is, I think, even just like credited as a groupie. Mm-hmm. and they're kind of like, they're having sex, they're kind of, they're fooling around or whatever. Eddie's kind of leaning into like being Eddie Munster too. He kind of growls, and as the scene goes on, he howls at the moon several times.
Yeah.
But like, then a waitress shows up with like bottle service, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean." And
get in
like,
here.
"Hey, since you're here, you could join us if you want." And she's like, "Really? That's so polite of you to invite me. Of course, I'd be happy to."
Right. And at some points, the groupie gives the waitress advice.
Yeah.
Which, that one's wild, but okay.
Yeah, so they're having, like, again, as far as things go, like, this is a nice consensual threesome between, 3 consenting adults who all seem like they're really having a good time. So, I support everything that's going on in here.
Yep.
Eddie's having a good time. There's like, occasionally we'll get some like warped effects to like make it look like this is like a cassette tape and not just like obviously digital effects that they've added after the fact.
Right.
And the girls are like super into the fact that Eddie's a werewolf. They keep talking about that he's a werewolf. They talk about his monster cock a bunch. And like there's a good chunk where like I think it's the waitress is on top of Eddie, and like he's sitting on a couch, and so we can't see Eddie at all really. Like, we just see her grinding on him or whatever. And I was like, he's gonna turn, like, we're gonna cut a
full transformation,
to him, and he's gonna have like fully turned into a werewolf.
That would be a wild porn.
Yeah, but he never does. Like, he just stays, the normal Eddie with the widow's peak, and the pointy ears and all that. Yeah. But like, never full on furry werewolf.
Which it might be for the best, really, Anthony.
Right. Yeah, the werewolf suit that they would have afforded on this budget would have been rough looking, I'm sure.
Yeah, it definitely. Lon Chaney Jr.'s makeup in the first Wolfman probably would be a lot better looking.
Oh, for sure.
All right, so they have a good time.
Yeah, he howls at the moon a lot, especially like the ending, like when he climaxes, like he is like howling up at the moon and having a good time.
Yeah. Then we cut to Herman.
Then we cut back to Grandpa's lab.
Yep, Herman's on the operating table. He says, Grandpa's unsure if he can put Herman back together in this one particular instance.
Yeah, like Herman's like, "Are you sure this will work?" And Grandpa's like, I don't know, but really, you're just a giant experiment anyway. So if I screw up, like, we can always just try again. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
Like, you're basically a Mr. Potato Head. Like, I'll just pop some stuff off, and if it doesn't work, or we'll put different stuff on. It's fine.
Yeah, but of course, I guess Herman found this hilarious because he starts like rocking back and forth, laughing on the table.
Yeah. So then we just cut to like the next morning, like everybody's kind of getting ready to head out for whatever's going on in their days. Herman and Lily are talking about what they're going to do for their anniversary. Mm-hmm. First, they're going to go to the sanitarium where they first met, and then they're going to go have a picnic at the cemetery where they first kissed,
and where Herman was born.
Yeah, he's like, I owe a lot to the people there. They made me who I am
today. Another mwah, nod to the old series.
Yeah, like that is 100% a joke that you would hear in an episode of the Munsters. Mm-hmm. So
exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, like you said, like Herman laughs at that, and it's the it's like it's the Herman laugh. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. And then of course we get bad CGI graveyard entrance.
Yeah, and then we get a scene that is probably even more unnecessary than the solo grandpa lady scene at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, you mean the punk quote unquote punk couple? They're more like latex fetishists.
Yeah, it's straight up. It's just like they went to Hot Topic and bought these two characters' clothes. Like it's just generic like mall goth kind of spiked belts and fishnets and all that. Like which is fine. If you're into that look, good on you. But like they're just like clearly they're just like, hey, let's make some like edgy weirdos who like to have sex in a cemetery.
Right.
And that's what we get. Like they just they're two totally unrelated characters that we've not seen before. They're not Munsters characters in any way. it feels like they're like they're padding the runtime of the film
Yeah.
pretty much.
See, I feel like they missed an opportunity here though, because you could have modeled one after Linnea Quigley, and then you would have had a Return of the Living Dead reference in your movie. Come on.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
All right.
The most interesting thing about this bit, as far as I was concerned, was like, so the girl gets fully naked except she keeps her belt on?
Yeah.
Somehow, like, takes her pants off but still has the belt, and just wears it around her waist for the full extent of this scene. I think that it works out on the guy's favor because he's got something to kind of hold on to, so he's enjoying it. And the camera work in this scene is kind of funny because, like, the camera keeps, like, drifting back and, like, going behind some cobwebs and trying to make it feel really atmospheric and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much, this scene goes on a while, and then Herman and Lily just kind of show up conveniently right after the climax
finished.
and everything, so we get the full scene. But like then they're like, hey, we would like to picnic here, do you guys mind if we set up a blanket over here? And of course these edgy punk goths or whatever are scared to death at seeing like the true goths, the real weirdos, Herman and Lily. And so they,
by the way, funny gag that Lily does is, of course, the punk girl has some semen on her chin. Lily's like, honey, you have a little something on your chin there.
Right. Yeah. So she's, just being like the sweet Lily and, helping out and stuff. And the girl panics and runs away. So they're like, okay, well, I guess they're done with this area, so we can go ahead and set up our little picnic.
Yep. And of course, what should be on the menu but rotten sea bass, Herman's favorite.
Right. And this scene is like super sweet. Like they just have a little picnic and they're just so happy to be celebrating their anniversary together. And again, like Roxy Deville is just like really kind of. It's interesting because like Herman is really kind of doing an impersonation of
Fred Gwynn,
and that it's good, it works. But Roxy Deville's kind of like doing her own thing that is like the spirit of Lily, but not exactly a recreation of any specific Lily we've seen. Right.
Whereas I feel like Grandpa's just kind of creepy, like
right.
all together. He's like, this is the Grandpa that would slip you roofies, Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they kind of this scene's pretty brief. Like they don't sit and have their whole picnic together.
Well, we do have a funny joke about like they're getting ready to pour some wine and they pop the cork. And it just shoots all around apparently it hits a cat at some point.
Right.
As is custom.
Yeah. And then, Herman's like, all right, so are you ready? I'll show you your big surprise.
Not gonna lie, I'm traumatized by his big surprise. Like
there's some weirdness here that we'll definitely have to talk about, because there's a few things that kind of confuse me and I'm not exactly sure what we saw, but so like, yeah, Herman stands up. And obviously the surprise is no surprise to us. We as we've been hinting, it was pretty obvious that he got a new penis.
Right.
So he shows it to Lily, and at first, like, we see
Papa got a brand new bag.
Yeah, and we see like him from the back and just her face, and she's like, "This is so nasty. I love it." She's excited about the gift.
It's nasty. Like the I don't know if they intentionally made it look awful, like with the scar tissue around the penis.
Yeah, so it's like it's weird because we do get like a close up of what's going on there, and at first there's like stitches around it and stuff, and Herman is green, and this was it seemed like it was black, and it was like, okay, we're doing that because it's porn, and of course we're going to do that. That it's got to be, if we're going to get a bigger penis, of course it's going to be a black guy, which, obviously is like the whole like porn trope or whatever. But then I don't know, like you said, if it was just like scar or something, because then pretty much the whole rest, after that little brief moment, then the actual sex scene, like I don't think they're wearing full body makeup for the the skin color.
Yeah, that's
I think they're using lighting.
Yeah.
To kind of make them look, bluish green.
Because at that point, his Franza turns the same color as the rest of him.
Yeah. So I'm definitely they just the practical matter is like we can't have like a makeup covered penis being used in a sex scene that's just not
it's not
hygienic
sanitary,
and that's not good. So we're just gonna and the same for like we don't want to have them be covered in makeup and it getting smeared everywhere and stuff. So we're just gonna light them with a blue light and have that do the job for us.
Yep. And it does.
Yeah, and so Lily's excited and
well, she's excited because it's bigger than his last one.
Yeah, of course. And Herman's all excited. He's like he's like flapping his hands around and is all excited.
Watching a guy have coitus and flapping his arms around it really takes you out of the moment, though,
Yeah, he's definitely playing a goofy version of Herman, and there's a part where he says like rigor mortis is setting in, which was that's a top-notch line for that moment.
Yep.
Then it's a porn sex scene. Like they have sex and everything, but like they are still kind of acting as Herman and Lily in a way that the rest of the characters aren't really like they're just. I mean, I guess Eddie kind of was, but the two grandpa scenes were not even really grandpa. And then
Marilyn was replaceable by any metric.
Yeah. But they are still embodying their characters while they're having sex. And so it makes the scene sweet, it's a graphic porno sex scene, but it feels like you're actually watching two people who care about each other.
Yeah.
And which not only makes it kind of sweet, but it actually I think you implied earlier, I think is the sexiest scene in the movie because it feels the most real, even though it's between two monsters.
Listen, monsters need love too,
Yeah. And over the course of this scene, Lily mentions that they were that this is their 300th anniversary and then their 500th anniversary.
Right.
So
how long
I
have they
think
been together?
Roxy Deville got too into the sex scene and couldn't remember how many years they were supposed to have been together.
Either that or she was like, let's do a bit while we're having sex.
Yeah, either way, it definitely, it was funny.
This is going to sound weird, but I would actually like to just see more regular movies with Roxy Deville. I feel like she actually cared. I mean, don't get me wrong, the porn's nice, but I feel like she...
Yeah, I agree. I think she is doing something here unique that, I don't want to oversell this. She's not Meryl Streep or something, but she's doing something kind of interesting and actually trying to give this an interesting portrayal of a character. I think she definitely makes the movie better. If it had been some other porn actress in a Lily wig, I don't think this would be as good.
No, not at all. But props to Herman as well. The actor who played Herman, he probably could have done more original stuff, but going back to the classics, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's even at the end of the scene after he finishes, he jumps up and down
and starts stomping.
The earth shakes and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very, very Herman.
Yep. So props to Lee Stone and Roxy Deville.
Yeah.
And then of course the end.
Yeah. So we get a Frankenstein abrupt ending even in this porn film.
Yep. We sure do.
So because I'm an absolute weirdo, after I watched, because I was thinking about that. The goth scene or whatever felt unnecessary and padding the movie and stuff. And so I went back and skimmed through the scenes and timed that, saw the timer on my player or whatever to see. So the solo girl scene at the beginning was 6 minutes, which that works for a little cold open, this little 6-minute scene. Mm-hmm. And then we have Marilyn and Ted, which is 18 minutes long.
Yeah.
Just the sex scene part. Then Grandpa and the doctor's girlfriend is 14 minutes.
Yeah, just shy of 15.
Yeah, and then we've got Eddie and the groupies is 16. So they're all kind of consistently in, around the same range. Then we've got the goths. They're also 16 minutes.
Yeah.
And then Herman and Lily only get 11 minutes.
Rude.
And it's I was this is anybody who is I'm gonna watch a Munsters porn film, this is the scene they were waiting for.
Right.
There's no way that you're watching this not wanting to see a Frankenstein
and a vampire,
the hot Lily vampire girl have sex. That's why we're here.
Right.
And not only did you make us wait until an hour and 20 minutes into the movie to get to that scene, but then we only get 11 minutes of it.
Right.
And not only is it the scene we're waiting for, but it actually is the best sex scene. It's the most well done in terms of like acting and stuff, and like I mean, it definitely they should have shaved a good chunk off of the previous scene and given more of it to Herman and Lily.
Yeah, I could have used less Ted, probably.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, so I would have been okay if they took a little bit off of Ted. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree, 100%.
So this is this is definitely the weirdest thing we've talked about on here, I feel like.
Yep.
It was very strange to just sit down academically with a notepad and
Right?
a pen and write while I'm watching a porn film. First time I've ever done that for sure. But yeah, like I don't know how, like, if this sounds like the kind of thing you would be into, track it down, I guess.
Yeah,
Like, I wouldn't like wholeheartedly recommend this for just any old Munsters fan, because it is an explicit porn film. But it's interesting. It's kind of fun. It does more with the Munsters stuff than like a lazier porn director would have done. So I give it props for that.
Yeah, so if you find yourself at the corner of porn connoisseur and Munsters fan, boom, this is right up your alley. But also don't you have to track it down on like the Hustler? Doesn't Hustler have its own channel now, or is that my fever dream?
I think so. I mean, they definitely have their own websites and stuff, and I know they did like, I don't know if they still do it, but like they had like a whole run of like a This Ain't the like This Ain't the Simpsons and whatever. They did a lot of fair use porn parody stuff or whatever, and this is right up there with that.
When they were doing elevated porn, I don't know if they still do elevated porn, but basically now we have a storyline, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, nowadays it's more common for it to just be clips and stuff because of all, like you said, Pornhub and stuff.
Attention span.
I think there are still some places that do stories and stuff, but it's not as prominent as it was, 10 or 15 years ago.
So long for the days of the pizza guy or the plumber coming to fix your leaks.
Yeah.
Holy shit, yeah.
So I think I've covered everything I had to say about this. You got anything
Nope,
else?
nope. I think we covered it all. It's just weird. Like you said, it was just weird sitting down and trying to academically analyze the scene and be like, oh, this is good lighting as someone's going to Pound Town. Yeah. Right? It's like, I'm trying to be an adult here, but I can't.
Yeah. So, like, I think when we teased this one in the previous episodes, like, so I'll go ahead and say, so like next week we're going to just do a normal Munsters episode. And then the week after, I think we've got one final Munsters month thing to cover before the Rob Zombie movie comes out. And I figured after this filthy movie, we all need a little Jesus, and we're going to go back to the original cast. They did a special where they went to an Easter parade in character and like filmed an Easter special.
How wild will that be?
Yeah, I have not watched this one yet. It's on YouTube. I'm very excited because it's got to be so weird. Like it's just not Fred Gwynn and Yvonne DiCarlo, but Herman and Lily at a real life Easter parade, just being themselves. So I'm sure it will be weird and goofy and probably boring at some points because it's just like a whole parade. But it should be unique at least, and I'm interested to see what exactly that looks like.
Oh man, could you imagine? Like, I feel like Grandpa would be like, the crucifixion, it was the best time I've ever had.
Yeah. Have to turn away from the cross and everything.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Or
yeah,
was the cross in effect at that time? I guess not, right?
Yeah, I guess not until after the crucifixion. Right?
I used to love a good crucifixion until that Jesus guy got. Anyway, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, so who knows what kind of jokes I'm probably a lot more 60s friendly jokes than that.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm definitely interested to see what that'll look like. So join us in 2 weeks when we go along for the ride at the Munsters Easter Parade.
Yep. As always, to be continued.
Looks like you've survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at